Welcome to another edition of After Hours, though as you can already see, this one is a little different. It's going to be different for two reasons. Number one, I'm filming from my office at home today rather than the place that it is normally filmed, and so you can kind of see some of my paraphernalia in my office behind me. But number two, I wanted to do something. It is related to the teaching, and then I want to talk about gratitude, which I spoke about this morning, but I want to be able mainly today to express my gratitude for 30 years as a pastor at Bay Ridge. December the 1st, that is coming up, which is next Friday from the time you're watching this, about 10 days later, will be exactly 30 years from the time that I was an elder and initially just coming in as a pastor here at Bay Ridge Christian Church. And I wanted to take just a couple of brief minutes to give thanks for the time and for the privilege of being pastor of the congregation here. I want to begin even by saying thanks to both Donnie and Myrtle and Tommy and Nellie Parlett. Donnie and Tommy were the two elders in our congregation at the time that I became pastor, and of course Myrtle with Donnie and Nellie there with Tommy. They loved and cared for our family through so many years. They also really took a chance. I was a young 32-year-old guy with a lot of energy and a lot of ideas, but very little experience in leading a church congregation. I had taught and done many things through the years, but it was there was a lot of chance being taken at that time, and I'm very, very appreciative both that they gave me the opportunity, but also for how they watched over and cared for my family. That they were bound and determined early on when I was a young man that I was not going to sacrifice my family in the process of trying to care for a congregation. And I am deeply grateful for them doing that. I'm also thankful for friends who joined them very, very early on or were already there. Tom and Priscilla, Ronnie and Renee, Jim and Beth, Mark and Sue Holmes, Greg and Karen Younger. There were others that were here. Mary Romer was here at that time, and then others who came in very shortly thereafter. Duke and Meg McClure, who were the very first wedding that I ever performed. Tony and Julie Marsh, folks that came in very, very early on when our congregation was struggling and trying to establish some things, and they were there with us through thick and thin, and I am really, really grateful for those long time friendships that have been there. And then for everyone else who has joined in along the way, those who serve as elders and deacons in the church council, and just folks, you may have just joined our church in recent months. I am really, really grateful for each and every person that God has brought into our congregation. It's not very common today for a pastor to serve for 30 years in a single congregation. It has been a huge blessing to me. And that is because particularly very early on, I wanted to be part of a congregation that wanted the Word of God to be taught with clarity, with depth, with boldness, with power. That was the attempt that I wanted to try and make. And there were some who didn't think that a congregation would really want that or respond to that, but our church has always longed for the Word of God to be taught clearly, in depth, accurately, and I am really, really grateful for that. I do not take that for granted. There are pastors through the years who've been run out of town on a rail for preaching the Word of God. Our congregation has always embraced that, and I am grateful. I am grateful that our congregation at Bay Ridge is a community that wants to be together, to care for one another, to be on mission from Annapolis to the ends of the earth. We have tried across these 30 years to be a congregation that's not just about sowing into ourselves, but rather we are blessed so that we can be a blessing. And I am grateful. If you are part of our church, you have embraced that DNA. You have embraced that idea and are walking it out. And I am so grateful for that. I'm grateful for all the sacrifices that have been done by newer people all the way back to those who've been there from the very beginning, that have continued to allow Bay Ridge to be a place that is biblically based, that is Christ-centered, and that is a caring community, watching over, loving one another. And along with this, I couldn't stop without giving thanks to my wife and my children who've joined me on this journey. Linda knew what she was getting into. Our kids did not. They were obviously born into a family, and when I shifted and changed my career focus and began to work for the church full time, that was a huge change for our kids. And I am so grateful that they embraced that life, that they were part of the church, that they have continued to love Jesus and to love the church and to be engaged, involved. And I'm now watching them raise our grandchildren in the faith. I am so grateful to my kids for doing that. And I am especially grateful to Linda, who has been the greatest gift that God has ever given me other than Jesus himself. She has been such a blessing to me across almost 40 years now. But embracing what this has meant, all the changes that came with me shifting from being a Marine to being a computer programmer to then being a pastor, that was a lot of changes, but she has received it all with grace and kindness and supported me the entire way. And so I just wanted to take this few moments today to say thanks to everyone who is part of this. If you are part of Bay Ridge, I am grateful for you. I am so glad that we have the privilege of walking together. And I am grateful as I look forward to many, many more years of walking together, as long as the Lord will give me here on this planet. I've said before many, many times, my desire is that I will die here and somebody will do my funeral and hopefully have one or two nice things to say and then pick up and move on and keep serving Jesus. It has been a privilege to have these 30 years with me as pastor, and my time in the church actually goes back now 44 years and almost 45, I guess. January will be, I guess it'll be 44 years, January, since I first walked into the church. And across those decades, from being a young midshipman to having the privilege to be called as an elder and pastor in our church, to being able to serve these 30 years, it has been a huge blessing. I am grateful to God for allowing me to do this, and I am looking forward with hope and expectation to our future. So I love you, I'm grateful for you, and I look forward to us gathering for worship again this Sunday. And as always, I encourage us to be that kind of a community. Come early, stay late. Let's worship God together and take care of one another. Brothers and sisters, that's where blessing resides. Have a great Thanksgiving, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. God bless.